What's up, y'all? The in-season tournament group stage is a wrap, and now we got to get to the points. I'm Dan Titus. That's Justin Henry. We had a crazy game to close out the group stage last night between the Golden State Warriors and the Sacramento Kings. So let's get to the points of who's your all-tournament team. We talked about it a little bit beforehand. Tyrese Halliburton, LeBron James, Domantas Sabonis, and Joel Embiid all made the list, but we were a little bit differing on the last guard. You have Damian Lillard. I have Devin Booker. Why do you like Damian Lillard?
Well, Dame, those early season struggles we saw with Damian Lillard definitely went away as the in-season tournament went on. He had 3 games over 30 points for this Bucks team who went undefeated during group play. And so with Dame hitting 4 threes in each of those games, really kind of catching fire from three-point range, I liked what I saw to Damian Lillard, and it looks like he has Vegas on his mind.
Yeah, he might have Vegas on his mind, but he also had Giannis Antetokounmpo playing all those games. Not to mention, come on, man, he didn't have Jimmy Butler going up against him last night. The answer is Devin Booker to fill in that last spot. This man had a 55-point differential, and you know how important that was in the group stage. In only 99 minutes, he averaged over 31 points, 8 dimes, shot 56% from the field, and he didn't have his man KD to close out the series. They got the wild card. The answer's got to be Devin Booker. What are we doing here?
Hey, I ain't too mad. He hit that clutch bucket. I know it wasn't in tournament play, but he hit that clutch bucket. And Devin's playing right now. He's hooping.
He's definitely hooping. And let's get to, so it's interesting, man, because, we can always talk about generational eras, who's going to fit where, but I thought it would be fun. Let's go to a little historical rookie battle here. Let's start off with a couple hot names in San Antonio. Obviously, there's Victor Wembanyama. How does he stack up with Tim Duncan in fantasy? Who are you taking, Tim Duncan or Wembanyama?
When you look at what Wemby's been able to do so far, it's kind of been crazy when you really think about it, right? Scoring almost 20 points a game. We're talking about 4 stocks of steals and blocks. And when you start kind of, comparing that to what Duncan was doing, Duncan was just doing a lot of the same, but those traditional big numbers. We were getting the 20 and 10. We were getting the 2 blocks a game. So a lot of those traditional numbers we were getting from Duncan, we get a little element of guard play from Wemby, and I'm not sure I like it as much. I do like Duncan, and I like the blocks that he was bringing. I knew what to expect, especially when you're talking in category leagues. Now, where I think Wemby is probably the more fun player to watch in real time, I'm still taking Duncan if I got to go with these bigs of the San Antonio Spurs.
You would take Mr. Fundamental over the alien. Come on, man. It's got to be Wemby. Through 17 games, this man has over 724 fantasy points compared to Tim Duncan only had 684 at that time. Now, I will say, as the season progressed, Duncan got much better. But these guys are essentially the same, and you're getting that guard play, exactly what you were saying, out of Wemby. He gets the threes. Duncan never did that. The free throw percentage, Duncan's nowhere coming anywhere close to that. So I got to give the edge to Wemby here, man. He's already looked better than Tim Duncan did at this stage of his rookie season, and it's only going to get better, assuming Greg Popovich finally decides to get Jeremy Sohan from playing point guard. Get him as far away as we can, man. The numbers with Trey Jones versus Jeremy Sohan in the lineup, it's just crazy.
It doesn't make sense. To me, they got to figure this thing out. But one more thing on Duncan. How are we turning down an automatic double-double? An automatic. 20 and 10 is a lock for Duncan. And I get it, the free throws, the threes ain't there. But he's carrying you in the other big categories.
You're not lying. The stocks are actually pretty similar. Wemby's at 2.4 blocks. Duncan was at 2.6. Wemby actually probably gets a little bit of an edge in steals. But, yeah, I feel like they're both great rookies. They're both likely going to win Rookie of the Year. Well, I shouldn't say they both. Tim Duncan did win Rookie of the Year. So I feel like they're on the same trajectory, but I'm still giving the edge, man. I feel like Wemby has the more fantasy appeal here. All right,
so I think in real life, we're like, Wemby, the hoopla is there, best generational unicorn, alien ever, or whatever you want to call him. But Duncan, he stuck to the books and he did it right. I'm taking Duncan over Wemby.
You would take the guy with the bank shots, man. All right, let's move on. Kevin Durant and Chet Holmgren. What side are you taking?
Now, this is a case of 2 very similar players for what it's worth. Both of these guys are skinny, stick figure type scorers, but both get it done effectively no matter what the size is. And they had the same concerns coming into their rookie years. But the one area that I see with Chet that's a little bit different in KD is that defensive side. The little bit of edge that Chet is getting when it comes to steals and blocks, it makes me start to think, you know what? Is Chet's trajectory better than KD? Is there a chance that we see Chet be the best player that came out of this Seattle OKC Supersonic, whatever you want to call it thing? Listen, I know it's a bold statement to make, but what Chet's doing on the court is crazy, especially when you consider the efficiency. I'm taking Chet over KD, believe it or not.
I'll take Chet over KD right now. I think it makes sense. Rookie season, if you're looking at it from a categories perspective, Chet's already a first round value through 17 games in the season, which is crazy. I think he'll probably normalize to probably around second, third round. But I mean, just look at the pure fantasy points, man. Chet's over 660 at this point in the season, where KD was about 580. Chet is better, and you stated it right, man. It's the stocks. Durant wasn't doing what Chet was doing on the defensive end. And when you combine that with Chet's efficiency, I mean, it sounded like a hot take, but I think you might be right. He could be the best draft
got a real
pick
shot
that they've had.
50, 40, 90. Like, he really does when it comes to the efficiency side. And then
you
couple that with the defense. The only real thing I could say for Durant over Chet is the scoring, right? Especially in that second year. Like, we're giving Chet, this is informally his rookie year, but this is also giving him a second year to develop his body, to get bigger, to add even just a little bit of muscle on. So we didn't get a true rookie year out of Chet Holmgren, but that second year KD, he was scoring 25 a game. If Chet is anywhere near 23 to 25 points a game, holy smokes, we might be talking about a top 3 player in fantasy next year.
I mean, definitely a first round pick in the conversation. If you're doing 50, 40, 90 plus the stocks, and you take that next leap as an offensive threat, man, that's going to be tough, real tough. It'll be interesting to see, can Chet be drafted before KD next year? Would you do it?
The trajectory, it's telling me yes. The only thing I need to see out of Chet is, can he sustain it over a year, right? We've seen this in the past where people come out with strong starts over the first 2 months and maybe they taper off a little bit. I'm not expecting Chet to taper off, but that's going to determine his value next year in drafts is highly contingent on how he finishes the season. And if it's as strong as it has been to start the year, I mean, he's a top 10 player in cat leagues right now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if he ever hits that proverbial rookie wall at some point. But now that we're, 6 weeks into the season, going into week 7, there's definitely an opportunity to start getting some trades off, whether you're wanting to buy low on somebody or sell high. I want to talk about that a little bit more. So what's kind of your philosophy in trading in general? What are you really looking for? What are those factors that go into when you're trying to execute a trade?
When I'm looking at trades, personally, I'm looking at, I'm assessing my team. Is this a good team right now, or do I have a team that needs some work, right? So if I start the season off hot, I'm not really in a hurry to make a lot of moves. And what I'm looking to do is buy low on players who maybe are struggling to start off the year. I'm not looking for anybody that's completely turned around the way that they played, but I am looking for buying opportunities. And when it comes to teams that are below 500, I'm looking at, do I need depth? How can I stabilize the floor of my team a little bit better? So I think in category leagues, you could be a lot more specific than you can in points leagues. In points leagues, you're buying the dip on players like maybe a Julius Randle, and you're hoping that they turn it around. And Cade Cunningham, you're hoping things get going there. Potentially even a Jordan Poole. These aren't names that I would be aggressively targeting, but that's the type of dip in production that I look for early on. And then in my category leagues, I'm starting to snipe now. What is my team good at? Where do I have a distinct advantage? And how can I continue to build these columns, right? I'm trying to stack these categories. So I'm trying to find players that fit the mold.
Yeah, I'd say I totally agree with especially the buying low on certain people that are struggling right now in category leagues. Whereas I look for, instead of looking at the production side, I look at those guys that got hurt, the Tyler Heroes, the Jamal Murrays, the guys that may not have a long-term injury that could be coming off of IL pretty soon. Now, there's like a nice window of time where you got to actually do that before the news comes out like, hey, they're going to be back next game. Look at the injury reports. Once they get upgraded from out to doubtful to questionable, once they go through those progressions, that's your window to kind of figure out like, hey, I got to go for this guy. So Tyler Hero to me is like the perfect buy low guy right now that you want to get in. And then you also look at his production before he got hurt. He was cooking. Like, he was a top 60 guy. And I think you could get him from a frustrated manager that might be like, I need this production, but I need somebody else to kind of fill that void while he's out. And that's one of the things I always try to look for in trade partners is, this is the right time in the season where you can go for the bottom feeders in the standings. Look at those people that are frustrated, looking for that next thing to like bolster their team to kind of rise up in the standings. Take advantage of that. And I'd also look for 2-for-1s. Like in category leagues, it's probably not as helpful as in points leagues because you're really just looking at pure numbers. Like if I get 2 people over 1, like I'll take those points all day. Right. Categories is a little bit interesting because you got to play with a couple different factors, or a few different factors there. But yeah, I think that's what you really got to look for. And in terms of how you're sending out those offers, what's usually your strategy to that? Like, are you lowballing? Are you how do you even facilitate the actual first offer?
Well, I think with any negotiations or any trades, especially in fantasy basketball, you don't want to disrespect the other person's knowledge, right? Because in hoop, we always, we challenging each other for this hoop knowledge. But I also throw out an offer where maybe it might seem on paper that a team's getting an advantage, but I know that I'm winning the deal. I know I'm getting the upside that I either want or the depth that I'm looking for. And that's typically the 2 areas that I target. Do I have a team that needs some upside, a team that's already been winning games, a team I feel strong about, but I want it to become an elite championship contender? Or is my team struggling a little bit more? And do I need some better depth, better starting pieces in order to maintain competitiveness throughout the season? So one of the strategies I do use is using hot names, players who have played well over the last 14, rookies especially, guys that are in the news in front of your faces, because it's easier to trade pieces that are playing well than it is to trade pieces that aren't playing well. So I always look at who's drawing the names. If I have any of the hot players on my team, I'm sending them out in offers, especially if I don't believe they can sustain it over the course of the season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think anyone that got off to an extremely hot start, the sell high moment becomes that much more evident to you that you can probably package them in with a hot name and try to offload and get you somebody. Because every time you're trying to trade, you should always try to get at least the best player in the deal, whether that's a 2-for-1 or so forth. But one thing I would say, like as you're reaching out to get those offers, the anchoring effect matters, right? Like you don't want to send out that first offer and be disrespectful. And it's like, this guy's just immediately taking that first offer and be like, all right, I'm not talking to this guy again. So a lot of this is finessing and making sure that you're giving a compelling offer to be like, all right, let me engage with this guy. Let me build the relationship to finally actually get a trade through. Ain't nothing worse than getting some BS trade. And it's like, bro, I'm not, this guy, I can't even take you seriously at this point, right?
Well, it's important to look at what other teams need too. Like you might have an extra point guard on your team. And so you're like, okay, let me send off a point guard, but they're rostering Tyrese Halliburton and they got a couple other guards on the team. You're like, you're never going to start that player. So it's important to also see, where's the team weak? Do they need an extra power forward? Could they use a center or some big production in category leagues? So I like assessing what another team needs and then sending out a trade offer instead of it just being a blind offer. Nobody likes blind offers that don't make sense for the team. That's literally the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, an easy way to do that is if you want to go into your standings and then you click on stats in the homepage, you can see where everybody stacks up against each other in leagues. So you can see who's the worst at blocks. If you got some blocks to spare, go target that guy and give him some blocks to make him more interested in trying to fill out the gaps where he could have in his team. So yeah, that's one of the things I always do. I'm always peeking around to see who needs what, just to make sure that I know that I'm giving at least the stats that the person could need to actually maybe get to improve their team.
And look, it makes for a better league, because otherwise everybody just hates each other. The group chat goes crazy. Nobody wants to trade. Like you got to have good trade partners there. So that's the biggest thing for me is like, hey, let's kumbaya. We're gonna have some nice trade talks. We're not pissing nobody off today.
Yeah, and no vetoes. Whoever's vetoing league, like no veto trades. No bueno. All right, that'll do it for Get to the Points this week. Tap back in with us next time. It'll be week 8 and a lot of things to talk about. So until then, peace.